Chapter 5 is called Go. Boca looked at Jack and grinned. You ready? He asked. I'm ready, said Annie. Where do we get our surfboards? Down there, said Kiama. She pointed to a rocky path that led to the beach. Let's go, said Annie. Annie, Boca, and Kiama started down the path. Jack followed, moving slowly and carefully. When he stepped onto the beach, Jack slipped off his shoes. He dug his toes into the dry, warm sand. It felt as soft as silk. Actually, I wouldn't mind just taking a walk on the beach, he said to the others. But no one seemed to hear. They had all walked over to a row of wooden surfboards, propped against the rocks. Boca picked out a long board and lugged it over to Jack. For you, he said. Isn't this a little big for me? He asked. Boca shook his head. He chose a board for Annie. Then he and Kiama grabbed a couple for themselves. Jack took a deep breath. I'd like to read a little about surfing first, he said. He put his board down and pulled out the research book. What is that? Asked Kiama. It's a book, said Jack. It tells you about things. How does it talk? Said Kiama. It doesn't talk, said Annie. You read it. Kiama looked confused. Jack, forget the book now, Annie said. Let's just do what Boca and Kiama tell us. She headed for the ocean, hugging her board. Jack sighed and put the book away. He left his pack in the sand, picked up his board, and followed the others. They all stopped at the edge of the water. First, we need to get past the breaking waves, said Kiama. Then we'll show you what to do next. Together, they walked into the cool, shallow water. The waves don't seem all that big, Jack thought hopefully. But as he waded deeper into the ocean, the breaking waves began to look bigger and bigger. When the first wave hit him, Jack leaned against it, lifting his board. He nearly fell over. Kiana, Boca, and Annie moved further out into the ocean. Jack watched as a wave loomed over them. They all threw their boards over the wave and dove into it. Jack struggled forward. The next time a big wave came toward him, he threw his board over it. Holding his glasses tightly, he ducked under. When Jack stood up again, he wiped the water from his eyes and his glasses. His surfboard was close by. He grabbed it before another wave came. Jack kept fighting his way forward. By the time he got past all the breakers, the water was up to his chest. We'll paddle out to catch a big wave, said Boca. Jack frowned. But don't worry, Jack, said Kiama. It will be fun. Boca and Kiama both pulled themselves onto their boards. They lay on their bellies and began paddling with their hands out to sea. Jack and Annie lay down on their boards too, paddling over the gentle waves. Jack relaxed. Now this was something he could do all day. When I say go, paddle fast, back toward the shore, said Kiama. When do we stand up, said Annie. When you start toward the shore, said Boca, stand up with 1 foot forward. Stretch out your arms to keep your balance. But don't try to stand up the very first time, said Kiama. Just ride your board on your belly. I see one coming now, said Boca. Wait, said Jack. Everything was happening too fast. He had questions. Go, Kiama shouted. Jack saw a big wave rolling toward them. Before he knew it, Boca, Kiama, and Annie were paddling quickly toward the shore. Jack paddled like crazy to keep up. Suddenly, the wave lifted him and swept him forward. Jack zoomed toward the shore with amazing speed. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Boca and Kiama and Annie all standing up. Jack wanted to be like them. In a flash, he went up on his knees. He put his left foot forward and stood up. For 1 second, he felt like a soaring bird. Then he lost his balance. Jack fell into the water, grabbing his glasses just in time. The wave crashed down on top of him. Water filled his mouth and went up his nose. His board and his lei were swept away. Jack twisted and turned in the churning water, and when his head bobbed up above the water, he choked and coughed. Another big wave crashed down on him, and he went under again. When he came up, he plunged forward, desperately trying to get to shore. Again and again, Jack was thrown down and slammed by breaking waves. But each time he got up and hurled himself closer to shore. Finally, Jack dragged himself out of the ocean. Feeling bruised and battered, he fell onto the sand. Chapter 6 is called Shake Up. "Jack!" cried Annie. She ran to him. "Are you okay?" Jack just nodded. He put on his wet glasses. He felt shaky and mad at himself. He never should have tried to stand, he thought. Kiama picked up Jack's surfboard from the shallow water and brought it over to him. "I told you not to stand," she said, laughing. "You fell hard." "It's not funny," thought Jack. "I nearly drowned." "The best thing to do is go right back out," said Boca. "You go," said Jack. His eyes and nose burned from the salt water. "I'll stay here." He walked over to his backpack, picked it up, and took out the research book. "Come on, Jack," said Annie. "Try it again. Stay on your belly this time." "No, this time I'm going to read about surfing first," he said. "Aw, you should just try it again," said Annie. "Not read about it." She ran to him and pulled the book out of his hands. Jack jerked it away from her. He slipped and fell into the sand. Kiama and Boca laughed again. "Why are you laughing?" Jack snapped. "You don't even know how to read." Boca and Kiama looked hurt. "Jack," said Annie. "That was mean. Say you're sorry." Jack opened his book and pretended to read it. He did feel sorry, but he was too upset to say so. "Fine, stay here," said Annie. She went back to Boca and Kiama. "Let's go." As Jack sat alone on the beach, he looked up from his book. He watched the other kids paddling through the water. "I don't care," he muttered. "I'm never going back out in those waves." "Morgan didn't send us here to surf anyway," he thought. "She told us to build a ship. But how the heck are we supposed to do that?" Jack heaved an angry sigh. Now he was cross with Morgan. You remember what cross means? Yeah, it means angry. So he's a little angry with Morgan. He turned to the back of the book and searched the index for ship. Suddenly, Jack heard a rumbling from under the sand. The ground started to shake. It shook so hard the book flew out of Jack's hands. Jack bounced up and down on the beach. Shells were jumping up and down too. Rocks tumbled down from the cliff. "It's an earthquake," thought Jack. The rumbling stopped. The shaking stopped. Jack looked around. Everything was normal again, except some rocks rolled around at the bottom of the cliff. Jack looked out to sea. Kiama, Boca, and Annie were past the breakers, and they were sitting on their surfboards, laughing and talking. Everything seemed okay, but Jack felt sure that something was wrong. He grabbed the Hawaii book from the sand. He looked up earthquake. He read, "Earthquakes in Hawaii have been known to cause tsunamis, which used to be called tidal waves. An earthquake can cause water out at sea to be set in motion. The water grows higher and higher as it moves toward land. Just before the tsunami strikes, water may pull away from the shore. Then it returns in a gigantic wave that crashes over the land and washes everything away." "Oh man," thought Jack, "a tsunami might be coming."